Hello and welcome to Salt and Light television coverage of Pope Francis's Apostolic Voyage to Canada. I'm your host, Matthew Harrison. I'm happy to be joined here on this last event on this trip by Francis Denis, the Salt and Light French host for our coverage. Welcome very much,
Hello,
Francis.
Matthew. It's good to be with you.
Good to have you. So a very busy day, a compact day, you could say, for these final moments. We started the day in Quebec City. There was a meeting with Indigenous representatives, an Indigenous delegation of residential school survivors, and the Holy Father did provide an address. It was slightly shorter than the other addresses that he's provided thus far. A few things that he did mention that we thought we would highlight is he spoke about the role of women. And Francis, I thought that was quite interesting. He highlighted three key people in the Church: Saint Anne, the Blessed Virgin Mary, and Saint Catherine Tekakwitha.
Saint Catherine Tekakwitha is the most, let's say, local personality that he underlined. Of course, Saint Anne, I think Saint Anne was really had a key role, both spiritually and symbolically in this entire trip, basically, because he went to Lac Saint Anne. He underlined the very important aspect of the kokum, the nukum, the grandmother inside all the indigenous cultures, basically. And he stressed how Saint Anne, her role in the education of Jesus, and in transmitting everything that was the law of the Jews during that time too. I think it's also what the kokum is doing inside the traditional culture of indigenous people, because it's a key element. We know that the indigenous people, all the nations that are present in Canada, are, not say their culture is in danger, because it's the opposite right now. They are rediscovered, and basically the residential schools were the enemy of the transmission of that culture. And maybe Saint Anne played a good role to make sure all those elements were able to be transmitted through that horrible 100 years or so of the residential schools, and the try of that the federal government and obviously the Catholic Church, the Pope recognized it, inside this horrible push to destroy their culture. Saint Anne was an example, and maybe she helped to preserve that. Now we're done with this. It's now to walk together and to underline everything that the indigenous people can inspire to us. And then, I think that was a very important element, and that's what he stressed this morning. And obviously, her daughter, her Virgin Mary, is very important, but maybe a little bit, not as important in this particular element, maybe spiritually, but she was not stressed as Saint Anne was, and obviously Catherine Tekakwitha is the first indigenous saint recognized, canonized by the Church, by Benedict XVI. And I think really Saint Catherine is an example, not only because, as we know now, us at Salt and Light, that we have stressed and we have understood more and more about the indigenous culture. We know that there's a lot of nations, different culture, different languages. According to Statistics Canada, there are 7 indigenous languages spoken here in Canada. Mm-hmm. So St. Catherine was both Algonquin and Mohawk, and she lived a little bit in the U.S., and then she came so what is now Montreal, and then that's where her body lies in Kanawagi Reserve in the south shore of Montreal, of the island. And I think really St. Catherine, she's the element of proud, like all the indigenous people I've spoken to and through the years. I've been in many reserves doing reports for Salt and Light in the years. I think St. Catherine is everywhere. Like every time you go to a Catholic church inside a reserve or a territory, St. Catherine is there. She's really a key element, and I think the Pope was very right to underline the importance of that woman this morning.
Absolutely, yes, and looking towards her as a model and as an example. And he said in his remarks that her ability to endure many trials with patience and meekness were also made possible by certain noble and virtuous traits inherited from her community and the Indigenous environment in which she grew up. Of course, her nickname, the Lily of the Mohawks. And about the Blessed Virgin Mary, he referred to her as no one deserves to be called a pilgrim more than Mary, for she is always, even today, even at this moment, a pilgrim, treading the path between heaven and earth in order to show us God's care and to lead us by the hand to her Son. And of course, St. Anne, I mean, we have had that theme all throughout, of course, the visit to Lac St. Anne, St. Anne de Beaupré. So it was beautiful to see those three highlighted at the end of the remarks by the Holy Father, and also he called upon them to bless the journey that we now share, and for their intercession for us, I'm quoting the Pope now, and for this great work of healing and reconciliation that is so pleasing to God. So,
one other element, very important, let me say that, is St. Catherine was accompanied by Jesuits.
That's right.
So now we have a Jesuit Pope, so it's like his predecessors, like as missionaries, that took care, accompanied St. Catherine into her fate in the difficult moment of her life. I think there's a key element of continuity there. It's very beautiful if you think about the historical heritage and how everything is linked.
Yes.
Throughout our history.
Yes, and of course you think of the Jesuits, Jean de Brébeuf, Isaac Jogues, and of course the connection also with other saints that we may have seen a little bit of. Blessed Catherine de Saint-Augustin, whose relics would have been where the tomb of Saint François Laval were. So beautiful, really connection to the Canadian Catholic Church that we've seen over the last couple days. So that event, the event today, the Indigenous delegation event, that was the last event in Quebec City. The Holy Father has flown from Quebec City to Iqaluit, where he is going to have a private meeting with some Indigenous representatives, and then he'll be participating in a more of a public event where he'll be providing an address to young people and to elders. And today is the final day of a very full trip. And as we await the Holy Father's address at Nakasuk Elementary School in Iqaluit, we are going to take a look back now at how we got there. And on Tuesday, we had the first of two large public masses that were celebrated, and Sultan Light's Julian Paparella shares the insights and sounds from the ground at Edmonton's Commonwealth Stadium.
We say we are committed to healing and reconciliation. We want the truth to come out. We want Canada to know about themselves. We want to be able to join with Canadians in helping us write the missing chapter in Canadian history. And a large part of that chapter is about us, the First Peoples, and in particular, the residential school experience.
We're here in Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton, Alberta for the Mass with Pope Francis, where tens of thousands of people have gathered. Families, Indigenous communities, people from all over Western Canada have come here to be with the Pope in this special moment. We even saw someone from Mexico.
For the pardon, for the forgiveness, and pray and ask the forgiveness from God and from the Pope.
Are you Indigenous yourself?
Yes, we are part the similar to the Indigenous people in here.
The Pope has come to visit. It's a chance of a lifetime for a lot of us in here. We don't have a chance to go to where the Pope celebrates, so this is a good event for us to come. And we really see the excitement in here. And I think one of the things is it's a challenge for the Catholic, and this is a way to heal and reconcile the differences. And so that's why we're here to support and do the praying with the people.
It's been emotional and a long journey for this decision, But however, I come to forgive the Catholic Church because I'm RC myself and very really into my religion and my prayers and stuff. So forgiving the past and move on forward is probably my goal to do, and just move on.
Well, it's a beautiful spiritual gift to Alberta, but especially the Indigenous people. This is the second time we have had a papal visit in Alberta. Of course, 1984, John Paul II. And on that trip, he had to postpone his visit to the Indigenous people of the Northwest Territories. He came back in 1987 and did that. And I think in a way paved the way for the culmination of this act of penitence and reconciliation. We know that Pope Francis, his health is not perfect. He's had to cancel other overseas trips. The fact that he's been so determined at his age and in his health to make this pilgrimage of penance is, I think, a profound expression of the gospel, and I'm honored to receive him here. This province has the highest rates of employment, of incomes amongst Indigenous people, but there continue to be intergenerational trauma and challenges, social problems related to addictions, and much of that is rooted, sadly, in the residential school experience. In a way, this, I think, symbolically and spiritually gives many of those people a sense that they can move forward, that there's been healing. The work of reconciliation is ongoing. It doesn't end, as the Holy Father said in Masquerades, it doesn't end in one day, but this is a profoundly important symbol and gift.
And so I reach out to my brothers and sisters, our parents, our grandparents, our communities, to take this bold step to unburden ourselves of these terrible memories. Not that we want to forget, we will never forget, but we must forgive. We must forgive.
And well, a large public mass like that of Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton, which we just saw, is very common in these papal visits, or like that of the mass at St. Anne de Beaupré that happened on Thursday. So too are smaller, more intimate events, much like the Pope's meeting with the Indigenous delegation earlier this morning that Francis and I were just discussing. Now, today's meeting was one of several specifically held for members of the Indigenous community to connect with Pope Francis. And earlier this week was a Liturgy of the Word at Lac St. Anne, this historic and famous pilgrimage site, God's Lake, as it was known in Cree. And Julian Paparella was on the ground for that, and he spoke with several pilgrims.
Behind me is Lac St. Anne. Here, Pope Francis came in a very moving gesture to this place that's so significant for the Indigenous of this region. For generations, and indeed centuries, it's been a place of healing. Here, the Pope came to be close to the water, and most of all, to be close to the people, to be a pilgrim with them.
remember the stories as a child, and coming into the shrine as a little girl and seeing the crutches and canes up on the wall as testimony of the water's healing powers. Yeah. And my family's got a big tie to this lake. We've been here for generations and generations.
Oh, I would just love to shake his hand and say hi. We come from a small community. I'm so happy to be here to see you in person. And not only that, to be blessed by him would be an honor.
Everything is coming together. It's beautiful. Look at the sunshine. Look at the people. It's like amazing. And the Holy Father's going to be here anytime. And everybody's just so stoked.
I really enjoyed what the Pope had to say yesterday. I really felt he took some time and compassion and understanding to listen here, and he verbalized that very well. I felt good. I felt at peace with the memories that were flooding to me as he was talking of the people that passed on before me that I worked with, lived with, and I cried for all of them.
And hearing it personally from her and what she has been working with in terms of families who've experienced residential school for the last 20 years, to me, it validates my presence and being here, not so much in the planning, but just being present and listening and being blessed by having what I've heard today, that what we're trying to do in terms of steps of reconciliation, these are the beginning steps. We're having these conversations, and they're impacting people's lives like Andrew.
And that it was Julian Paparella at Lac St. Anne. Those, of course, the two events, Commonwealth Stadium and Lac St. Anne, were both in Edmonton, the first leg of the Holy Father's visit to Canada. Then he transitioned to Quebec City on Wednesday and Thursday, and he wrapped up in Quebec City this morning. He had a meeting with an Indigenous delegation. Actually, first of all, he had a meeting with his brother Jesuit, Society of Jesuits. That was a private meeting, wasn't broadcast, and we did have a broadcast of this meeting with the Indigenous delegation. Then he left Quebec City around noon and landed in Iqaluit just shortly before 4 p.m., I believe. The Holy Father has been headed, or at least I believe now, is at the elementary school where he's had or is in the process of having a meeting with a private meeting with residential school survivors or with the Indigenous community, and then there'll be a public meeting where there'll be a celebration of heritage, and the Holy Father will offer some remarks before his farewell flight back to Rome later this evening. Now, on the ground traveling with the Vatican Press Corps is our own Vatican Bureau Chief, Jen Kopsteg. Jen, how are things down in Iqaluit? What's the sense on the ground there?
Hi, Matthew. Yes, we just landed in Iqaluit probably about half an hour ago, and Pope Francis, as you said, has gone into elementary school where I'm standing outside right now. So we're in sort of the middle of Iqaluit, and there's probably several thousand people gathered here. The atmosphere is quite somber, actually. I've talked to several people who are feeling really mixed emotions about Pope Francis's arrival here. There's teams of trauma support workers dispersed throughout the crowd, and they said they've already been talking to people. I've seen people with their arms around each other and people in tears, and some look in a state of shock. I think there's shock that Pope Francis is coming here, and also just shock some of the memories that are coming up for people with the Pope arriving here. And some are saying it's a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity for them to see Pope Francis, and they weren't really believing that he would make the trip to Iqaluit, so they're delighted. I spoke to one gentleman who said he was just full of respect for Pope Francis. He said he's watched him with his mobility issues throughout the weeks. He's realized that over several months he's canceled other trips, but that it must have been important for him to be here in Iqaluit, and that means a lot to him.
Yes, absolutely. Certainly a very resilient Holy Father as he travels a very busy schedule, actually. And in fact, Quebec was busy as well yesterday. We had the Holy Mass from St. Anne de Beaupré, and then Vespers in the evening. And then, of course, he was up early again. He had a private mass, as I said, meeting with the Jesuits, and then meeting with another Indigenous delegation. So, what was it like? Oh, we are getting images now from the ground, from the Nakasuk Elementary School. We haven't seen the Holy Father yet, but they are preparing. I understand, Jen, that they're doing a program, a bit of a cultural program. Is that right, ahead of time?
Yes. So we've heard Inuit throat singers, there's been Inuit drummers, and the school itself, it's quite an unusual shape. I've just been told by one of the people in the crowd here that it's actually meant to replicate or look like a whale skin. So it's a very unusual, I don't know if you can see it on screen, but a white building with quite a few different geometric shapes coming out of it. And behind it is this quite famous Igloo Church. So that's quite something as well. I don't know if that's coming up in your images or not, Matthew.
We haven't seen the images right now. We've just seen are of the stage, and we've seen a few crowd shots as well, as there are folks gathering around. And as we said earlier, the Holy Father having a private meeting with former residential school students, that was scheduled to start just almost about an hour ago. Now, we know certainly from what we've seen thus far, the Holy Father definitely taking his time when he does visit with elders, with residential school survivors. And I'm wondering, Jen, you were talking earlier just kind of about the mixed emotions, and you've been on the ground traveling along with the Holy Father through the course of this entire trip. Would you say that this compares maybe a bit more to Maskwacis in terms of the feeling?
Yes, absolutely. The atmosphere here is very much like Maskwacis. If anything, it feels, equally somber, I would say. But I think people are wondering also maybe if he's going to repeat the apology here. But it's definitely very, very somber. And there's many, many families here with children. I spoke to a group of teenage girls also, and they told me, they're feeling really tearful. They're feeling that they may have a lot of emotions when they see the Holy Father, and that it also was quite incredible that he'd made the journey. So that's something that most people are saying, that it's incredible. There's many people have told me that they're too shy to speak about their experience, and of course we respect that. And it's been a very difficult week for people who have suffered from trauma. So it's kind of, as the week goes on with the Pope Francis here, it does feel like the emotions are building, if anything, in a way. And I think people are anticipating what will happen when he's gone back to Rome.
Absolutely. And so maybe Jen, you can comment on that. What's next after this event? And I guess it is the Holy Father going back to Rome and flying out tonight.
Yes, so he'll take questions from journalists on the plane this evening, and the order of the questions has been determined. So he'll take questions from Canadian journalists first from here, and then we will land in Rome tomorrow morning around 8 o'clock local time.
So certainly still quite a bit of travel for you. I know you've been shifting around different time zones for the last couple of weeks, and it's been a very busy schedule for all the Vatican team and, of course, all the Salt and Light team covering things. So we definitely appreciate you taking some time now to chat with us about what you're seeing on the ground in Iqaluit.
Yes, of course. And just to also say that it's a very beautiful place. Behind the school, I don't know if you'll get images of that, but you look out into into these wonderful mountains, and even when we're flying over, you can see small icebergs in the water, and it's just absolutely stunning scenery here. Beautiful.
Absolutely, yes. We have seen some wider shots, and it does look very sparse, but at the same time very beautiful. So I hope you have an opportunity to soak in some of that natural beauty and enjoy your time there.
Thank you. We'll be heading. I think we're heading quite soon. As soon as the Holy Father starts speaking, we'll be heading to the again. But it's wonderful to be here. It really is.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Jen, for joining us.
Take care.
And that was Jen Kopstake, our Vatican Bureau Chief, joining us on the line from Iqaluit as we await the arrival of the Holy Father. What's occurring now is a bit of I guess you'd call it a cultural festival, as the audience in the crowd waits for the Holy Father to arrive. He is meeting with he does have a private meeting right now with former residential school students in the Nakasuk Elementary School, and that's just beside this area here.
Only then will you be found. Ignite that gentle inner fire. Let it rise like voices in a choir. Flames dancing bright and strong, keeping time with your life song. Now you milagit, sivunitinit, type sumani kisiani, na fataula hutit. Ignite that gentle inner fire. Let it rise like voices in a choir. Flames dancing bright and strong, keeping time with your life song. Na yung milaugi, sivunitinit, type sumani kisiani, na fatao lahutit.
This is
How
deep.
will you be remembered?
That is Diantha Edmonds-Ramsey, an operatic singer, and she's been performing as part of this community show. Songs from her latest album, Song of the River, Life Song, were some of the selections. So there is a papal program that will include throat singers, as well as Miss Edmonds-Ramsey.
Thank you so much for being here, everyone. That was beautiful, wasn't it? Ate, patita siya may lavod. Nakormig for our beautiful performers, showing pride in our culture, and ilon nang nakormig bavuta kwa tema. For those of you who are wearing or using the transmitters, the translation equipment, don't forget to bring them back when we are finished.
So it is interesting to note, as the MC of the program is talking just about the community show, that the Holy Father will be speaking in Spanish. However, he will be translated into Inuktitut, which is quite unique. Of course, we've seen him speak in Spanish throughout, but it's been translated either into English or French. So today, of course, wanting to be able to share his message in a common language to the people, the Holy Father being mindful of that. Francis, I suppose you'd say layout of this region is quite interesting in terms of the Inuit and the territory that is covered.
Yeah, exactly. We could say that the Inuit has their own territory. It's a region that is comparable to Yukon and Northwest Territory. You have the Nunavut, which was created not long time ago, actually.
That's right.
There was a vote and official recognition and proclamation of the foundation of Nunavut, recognized as a territory, governed entirely by them. Inside Canada, it was on 1999, so it's basically 23rd anniversary of the creation of Nunavut. But something important is that the people of Great North, the Inuits, they are not restricted to that particular area. We can find them throughout different countries, actually. So we can find Inuits in Russia, in the up north of Siberia. We can find them in Greenland. There's Nunavut. There's Inuits who live there, but inside Canada, what they called we can find them in different areas of Canada. So this area, they call it the Inuit Nunangat. The Inuit Nunangat is the collection of all the 4 territories where you can find Inuit communities. You have obviously the Nunavut, where most of the population of the 65,000 Inuits live, actually. Yeah, there are about half of them. 30,000 live in Nunavut. But you have also the region of Inuvialuit, which is the region that covers most of the Yukon, part in Yukon and part in the Northwest Territories. There's a small communities there that live in the region of Inuvialuit. But you have also the Nunavik. Nunavik is the area where communities of the Inuits can be found in the province of Quebec. They are about, in Nunavik, 12,000 people who live there, which is about 18% of the total population of Inuits in Canada. But also in the Labrador region, you have another part of the Inuit Nunangat, is the Nunantsiavut. It's the smallest territory, we can say. There's about 2,500 Inuits who live in Nunantsiavut. So it's interesting that Nunavut was recognized as an independent territory where the Iqaluit, their capital, is present, where the Pope is in the events that are happening today. But we might keep in mind that the entire let's say, geography where you can find Inuits are not only in Nunavut. You can find them in Nunavik, in the Inuvialuit region, in Nunantsiavut region as well. So it's really interesting to see how their culture, and it's also important to think that for them, their territory is not only where you find land, it's also where you find the sea and where you find ice, which is in a mix of the two. So because most of this region become like a big land during winter because all will become icy. So it's interesting to see that their land for them is also where the ice, until where the ice is going.
Yeah.
It's to make a very heterogeneous community, so they share the Inuit culture and tradition, but they also are not only in 4 different territories in Canada, but they are also in different countries, like I said, in Greenland and Russia and the United States. So you find them also in Alaska. So So I think it's really a region of people that should be more discovered because they have their very rich history. If you look at their history, the contact with, let's say, the missionaries and also the Canadian government with Hudson Bay Company, it started very recently. But the history goes back far beyond that. Archaeology have said that they have been there for thousands and thousands of years in that area. And most recently, let's say, in the first millennia in 1250, they have been different exchange in the Greenland region with the Vikings, the Vikings themselves. So you can find things regarding their cultural exchange. After the Vikings, they left, but the Inuits have stayed there. And then after you can go further into history until the arrival of the Europeans who arrived, and then they start to make some commercial exchange with them, especially with the fur and also the whales, the hunting whales. They have been developing that region for a certain amount of time. After the Second the First World War, this commerce declined a little bit, let's say,
right.
And they made other commercial. The economy started to develop more and more after the Second World War, and then with the creation of the Confederation as well. And we can say that the central government, the federal government in Ottawa started to take more attention to the Inuit and their economical development around the 1960s.
Right.
And then it had a big impact onto those communities because they were more nomads. So
Sure.
they were going and moving. But at the same time, they had some, the government and the way they wanted the Inuit to live. Well, it's hard to make a judgment right now, but it changes their way of life. They became more and more, stable.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why today, maybe it was not the case before, but today you find the population of Inuits living in those urban, semi-urban cities, such as Iqaluit. Which has advantages, but also disadvantages if you regard the continuum of the cultural development, which brings some challenges.
Yep.
So, but today, I think the Nunavut government, the fact that they have their own government, they have their own territory, freedom that comes with it, a possibility to understand how to spend, their money into a cultural, more cultural sensitive approach to their own development. I think we, the Inuit population all over the Inuit Nunangat is opening for a good future. Their population is so young. I think there are fresh sources, and I think there's bright future for all this population that we should know more.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, really, that piece of history, and even the territory. I don't think it's something that's maybe as commonly known. I know there's, thus far on the trip, there's been quite a focus on First Nations and Métis as well, and I think now is the time that we'll probably see the Inuit people shine. There's certainly in the program schedule, there's really. It's being framed as a cultural program for Pope Francis. There'll be, as I mentioned, the throat singers. There'll be drumming. He'll be lighting a lamp, a traditional lamp that uses whale blubber, which is used to symbolize the warmth of an igloo. So I think we'll see a lot of elements, as we've seen throughout this entire trip, of really tying in different aspects of First Nations, of Métis culture. The Holy Father, I think of at one point, was wearing a stole that was like the Métis sash. Of course, the Holy Father also being presented with a war bonnet by Dr. Wilton Littlechild. So that kind of sharing of culture, and that's what they were saying is this program that leading into the Holy Father's visit and his address, that they started earlier today. Earlier this afternoon to share, and we heard a couple of singers, and certainly this is an opportunity for them to really have their culture shine on a global scale. So certainly very exciting for them. If you're just joining us now, you're watching live Salt and Light television coverage of Pope Francis's visit to Iqaluit. This is the third and final leg of his apostolic voyage to Canada, his pilgrimage of penance. He left Quebec City around noon today to fly into Nunavut, and he's in the process of meeting right now with residential school survivors. That meeting started just over an hour ago. According to our schedule, we're running a bit behind. He was to be joining this public program around 5 p.m. Eastern. Now, as is the case, as we've talked about, he does take that opportunity to really have personal connections with people. So, I think I would suggest that it would even be expected that his meeting with the residential school survivors here at Nakasuk School would take longer than that 45 minutes that were scheduled, because he has had that time to talk with people, to listen to them, to hear their stories, and to really make that, to have that one-on-one experience. And our Vatican Bureau Chief Jen Kopstake was reporting from the ground earlier, noting that there's mixed feelings, and folks are even a bit amazed that the Holy Father has made it. That might be the case where I think many Canadians are thinking, oh gosh, we've heard about this trip and it's coming and now it's finally here. And so a lot of people have had an opportunity to encounter him. Of course, in the West, we started in the Edmonton area, and there was the visit to Maskwaci's very emotional, very powerful occasion where the Holy Father reiterated his apology. And then, there were other private meetings, public meetings with Indigenous delegations, and that progressed to the Mass at Commonwealth Stadium, where we started to see more of that theme of walking together and more of the theme of hope and joy that is to come. And then that led to Lac St. Anne, where we kind of emphasized that as well. And then in our visit to Quebec City, it seemed that there was the Indigenous element, Francis, but there was also a bit more of an element of the Canadian Church as a whole, I think, in that address at St. Anne de Beaupré, as well as the Vespers at the beautiful Cathedral of Notre Dame.
Yes, in fact, because I think the history of the residential school is different if we talk about the English part of Canada in the eastern, especially in Quebec, because as we have seen previously during this coverage, Monsieur Poisson answering some questions that we had together, and he explained that the residential school was not as developed as it was in the western part of Canada, because many historical fact and variables are in play here, but we had only 12 residential schools, and they were open in a very, if we compare with the west part of Canada, with the Hermanuskin, I think it was open for 100 years or something.
Yes.
In Quebec, it was very a smaller time frame that was open, because it took more time, and also because the assimilation and colonialism that were played by the British Empire first, and then the federal government after. The Quebecers were always in the same, let's say, report with the federal government in a certain way. If we remember the Lord Durham, who wanted to assimilate different Canadians, so I think the report and the will of the Catholic French Canadian Church to collaborate with the colonialist policies of the federal government were not that inclined. So, but there was some residential schools, and inside those residential schools there was some abuses, sexual abuses done by some unfortunately some of the members of the Catholic Church and missionaries, and those abuses were also, sexual abuses were also done by a certain member of the clergy, official members of the church as an institution. They were done also in other schools which were not Indigenous. Mm-hmm. So the sexual scandal, let's say, in the province of Quebec is not restricted to the Indigenous people. So that's why yesterday, if we look at the speech he did, he formally asked for forgiveness. He said, "Je demande pardon."
That's right.
For specific, but not only for Indigenous people, but for everybody who was abused. So
yes.
It was a little bit larger excuses. He extended that excuse to the entire people who were abused by some members of the Catholic Church in Quebec.
Yeah.
So that's an element which explains why maybe it was talking about the church as a whole, more or less.
Yeah.
And those two factors, and he really stressed the importance of a new missionary approach to our culture, how to be inside this world, which is described as a secularized world. But he made a very important distinction. Made on a Canadian philosopher, Charles Taylor, which he quoted. Mr. Taylor that I interviewed before, I'm sure he was very, touched by the fact that he was quoted by the Pope. But Charles Taylor, he really made a difference between secularization, he was also the Pope Francis was also quoting Paul VI.
That's
who
right.
really gave the the roots of what is evangelization today in our modern world. So the secularization is not necessarily a bad thing for the church, and it's not a bad thing because we're not there. The church is not there to make sure the power we had or the the aura we had in the past is still going on right now.
Yeah, to
It's
hold
not-
on to the power.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So that is gone, and that's good. Basically, we're not there for that.
Yeah.
We're there to preach Jesus Christ and make sure everybody hear the message of Christ and can develop and be able to develop the personal relationship with it through the sacraments of the Catholic Church. So that's what we're doing. That's our mission. So the Pope make a distinction. So that the fact that our world is not sacred, let's say, anymore. It's not like we cannot pretend to have a role in that society just by the fact that we are religious. We are a religion. That's good for the church because it purifies us. It purifies the world also. The world is needs to be living according to the real, the science, the facts, the philosophy, independently, let's say. But you have secularization, secularism. Sorry.
Yes.
Secularism is something that we need to fight against in a certain way because secularism is the way of not letting any revelation, any religion, any space into public society. So you really say, well, secularization, that's good, secularism, not. So we need to find a new way as a church to be able to preach the gospel, to make sure everybody has the opportunity to, consider the revelation of Jesus Christ, but at the same time we should not, we need to do it in the new way. And that's what he called and he stressed very deeply to a new pastoral creativity for evangelization. So I think yesterday's speech was very deep, very interesting. I think we should, it could become a very important text in which all the churches in Canada could reflect to develop a new pastoral way throughout Canada, Quebec, and all the Western world in a certain way.
Yes, it was a very interesting homily. That was the homily that was provided at Vespers, and it was specifically the audience and the congregation was bishops, priests, deacons, seminarians, pastoral workers. However, I mean, really, it would apply to lay people certainly. And he did speak about 3 challenges of making Jesus known, of being an authentic witness, and fraternity, and all again relevant to lay people and all aspects of the faith that we can incorporate into our faith lives. But it's interesting the distinction he did make with secularism and secularization. And on a number of occasions, homilies or either remarks, I believe the Citadel, he spoke to this as well, and I think he spoke to it at St. Anne de Beaupré or at least at Commonwealth Stadium, just about the idea that the church still has a place in society, in that we can't acquiesce to people who say, like, well, you're religious or you're the church, you don't have a voice. We still have a voice. And he even used the quote cancel culture, and just there was a lot of rich comments in the materials, and certainly we invite any of our viewers, if they're looking to see the actual homilies or remarks, we're posting them on our blog, slmedia.org/blog. It's definitely worth looking, because I think you're right, Francis, that these will be texts that the Canadian Church will be referring to and looking back on for several years to come. There's a lot of great nuggets of information, a lot of wisdom, and a lot of relevant comments about society in different areas as well, whether you're talking life issues, whether you're talking economic, ecological. There's quite a bit packed into those homilies. This will be, and remarks too, they're not all homilies, I think there were maybe 3 or 4, but this will actually be the 9th public address, including homilies, that the Holy Father will have made as part of this apostolic voyage. So he's been quite busy. It's actually going to be one of the longer addresses as well, from what I understand, and it will be spoken specifically to young people and to elders. He has brought about many images and many aspects of culture for the indigenous, But also, he's brought up many Canadian references. The maple leaf, not the hockey team, but maple leaves, the actual leaf, the flag he's spoken about. He's made references to maple syrup and Indigenous boiling down this sap. We just saw a shot of the altar. If you're joining us live again, we are awaiting the Holy Father's address at Nakasuk School in Iqaluit, and you can see seal skin on the chair. That will be the Holy Father's, I guess it's not a presider's chair because it's not a liturgical event, but from the main chair now. That was just put in place, so we could speculate that we're only moments away from the Holy Father arriving.
Yeah, people are waiting. They are expecting. We see a beautiful image of that woman who's, you see how happy she is and deeply touched, maybe, to see the Holy Father, which is, international, universal key figure, and a bit political, let's say diplomatic and religious figure. I would say the relationships between Inuits and the Catholic Church are slightly different that they have with the other indigenous people, depending on where they are, because as we said, there's more than 50 different nations of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. Inuit being like a category in itself, let's say. Sure. Basically, they were not necessarily evangelized by the Catholic Church. They were evangelized more by Anglicans. So their relationship with the Catholic Church is slightly different. It's more, I would say, it doesn't mean that there's no Catholics. For instance, the parish in Iqaluit, which is run by a priest, his name is Daniel Perrault. That parish, Our Lady of Assumption, was founded in 1959 by Oblates of Mary Immaculate. So the presence of the Catholic Church is present everywhere. But let's say the Anglicans in Nunavik and in Nunavut, they have been, like the first who arrived there was the Anglican. So basically the church arrived after around 1959. Like I said, the parish priest, Catholic Church there was founded. That little church. But at the same time, after a couple of years ago, let's say, the Vatican II Council arrived. And during the Vatican II Council arrived, there was some reflection and new document who arrived about how to deal with our brothers and sisters from other Christian denominations. Right. And there was a big reflection on the fact that maybe the missionaries' mission of the church should not necessarily be considered as something that we need to do in competition with other Christian denominations. And that was the case in some parts of the Great North. The Catholic Church established some post, let's say, some establishment. But after the Vatican II Council, because of the Anglicans were already there was kind of let's say, not the stop, but we say, okay, Anglicans are there, let's not bring too much like counterproductive messages between the churches. So that's why there was a slowdown into the effort of the Catholic Church to establish itself over there in that region. So that's why today, like the couple of Inuits have been into Catholic run residential schools, so there's part for asking forgiveness by the Pope to the Catholic, the Inuit community, of course, because sometimes they will be sent very far away up north, in the south. Right. Yeah. So, but a lot of Inuits also were sent to Anglican and other Christian denomination residential schools. So the responsibility, the calibration is there. So there's something to be forgiven for. Absolutely. But it's slightly different. It's not as bad, let's say, as it was in the South because of the fact that they were not Catholic the entire. So I suppose that the Pope, maybe, that's me speculating here, but the Pope will stress and try to attract the attention on what that beautiful people of Inuit, what they can inspire the entire world today to face challenges, because we know with the climate change and everything, that those populations that live up north their entire environment becoming ice every year, this will have the climate change will have a big impact there, especially with also economically with the Great North Passage that will, you know, it's going to be in the next century is going to be an area where a lot of economical elements will be and political will happen. So to stress out the importance and the fact that they have their own territory in Nunavut is really good, and I think it's going to be it's going to help through that beautiful culture of Inuits. It's going to help to, let's say, not rushing too much in developing and going, you know, we need to do development, but we need to do it well. We need to respect the environment. We need so especially for the years to come, I think the Pope will stress some elements about the environmental aspect of their particular culture.
Absolutely, I wouldn't be surprised. He's brought that theme up a few times so far, and of course, there we can see the Apostolic Nuncio, Archbishop Djokovic, and you can see that the papal entourage has gathered. Archbishop Gagnon there. Cardinal Collins we saw earlier, as well as Cardinal Ouellette, Cardinal Cherney, so they are taking their place, so the Holy Father should be only moments away. You mentioned the Anglican aspect to this territory. Of course, Catholic Church wasn't the only church involved in residential schools. Anglicans were involved in other denominations as well, certainly. So it's and also interesting to note, you mentioned the oblates and the parish priests. In fact, the bishop of this territory is Bishop Anthony Krotzky, and he's from Poland. He's been the bishop here, I believe, since 2013. And when I say here, I mean the Diocese of Churchill, Hudson Bay. So much like Archbishop Smith, who accompanied Pope Francis in Edmonton, and Cardinal Lacroix, who accompanied Pope Francis in Quebec City, it will be Bishop Krotzky who will be by the side of the Holy Father. And of course, we've seen those, Cardinal Lacroix and Archbishop Smith, part of the papal entourage throughout, as we've seen with the other members of that entourage and cardinals and bishops who have been part of this 6-day journey. But I think it's certainly with them taking their place, we are likely only moments away. If you are just joining us, we are awaiting the Holy Father and his address, as well as a papal program where we'll be learning more about Inuit culture, and there'll be performances for the Holy Father from a variety of different aspects of Inuit culture. We're running probably about an hour later than what it was originally scheduled, and that's likely because of the Holy Father's conversations with residential school survivors. He did have a private meeting with them at this Nakasuk school. So this is like the courtyard area, I guess you'd say, where people have gathered. As well, there is the school itself where there would have been that private meeting. The Holy Father, of course, greeted at the airport. It wasn't televised, but greeted by many different dignitaries, including the Minister of Northern Affairs, the Premier of Nunavut, Commissioner of Nunavut, by a number of elders and survivors. Interesting to note that this school, Nakasuk Elementary School, is one of 4 elementary schools in Iqaluit, and it is, as we've said before, the final destination for the Holy Father's pilgrimage. From this point, from the conclusion of this presentation and this program, the Holy Father will travel to the airport maybe about 15 minutes away, and then there'll be a bit of a farewell ceremony. Nothing formal in terms of addresses, but certainly saying goodbye and likely thanking his hosts, not only here in Iqaluit, but also with the Canadian bishops and the faithful who have traveled with him. So as long as we have satellite video being broadcast to us, we will continue to stay on the air to share that with you as we are winding down our time with Pope Francis here in Canada. Interesting to note about Iqaluit, it is the capital city and the largest city in Nunavut. And even then, as of May 2021, the population is just under 7,500. So still a small, remote location. And in fact, in 2000, it was only 5,000 people. So So it's definitely growing in size. Looking at the landscape, as our Vatican Bureau Chief Jen Kopstick on the ground commented, it's a very stunning beauty here. She's even saying that you can see pieces of ice, you can see the mountains, and we've seen a little bit of that, but it is a very icy landscape, certainly for 8 months of the year. And you can see the permafrost, the icebergs, and it is, of course, going through the rocky Canadian Shield area, not the Rockies, but the Canadian Shield. The Holy Father made a comment in one of his remarks earlier this week, I think it might have been actually at the Vespers, where he talked about the vast expanse of our land and traveling so far. Certainly a little bit different than being in Rome, Italy, where the country is just next door. You have to go quite a bit farther here in Canada. Interesting to note also, snow usually begins in October, and we talked about kind of the ice and the snow as part of the Inuit culture, part of their identity, really, and I'm sure we'll be learning a little bit more about that. You've likely seen some of those gathered either in the audience or who will be participating in the program, dressed in that heavy winter clothing, that parka-style clothing, with some beautiful beadwork as well. I'm curious, certainly, to see what kind of gift exchange we'll have. Every time we've been to a different location, there have been an exchange of gifts. So it always tailored to the particular heritage of that community or of that area. So it will be interesting to see what we have in Iqaluit. Again, worth noting, the Holy Father will be speaking in Spanish. However, it will be translated into Inuktitut, which is quite unique. It will, of course, provide an English translation for our viewers. And then, of course, Francis will be providing the French translation. We should also note, if you're wondering when the next broadcast is for the French repeat or the English, please check our programming schedule at slmedia.org. So, we are still awaiting the Holy Father and the cultural performance that we will have. They were chosen by Inuit partners to highlight Inuit traditions, and in fact, I just saw a peek of the Holy Father as he is being brought onto stage just behind that little black screen there. So we are moments away from the beginning of this event, which is expected to run by about an hour. And there he is, the Holy Father arriving to applause from the audience and those gathered. This is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It's really interesting to see that in the crowds, it's really, it represents today in Iqaluit is becoming more and more multicultural, because a lot of people from the south goes up north, living there a couple of years, and work in, into the different aspect of the economy there, because it's really developing, and then they go back, and so it's really important to see that all those communities are represented.
And for the first time, we're seeing the Holy Father in a bit more of an overcoat, likely adjusting to the temperatures. Saw the papal translator behind him, Father Marcel Caron.
Welcome. Welcome, Pope Francis. Thank you. Be welcome, everybody. It's a great pleasure to see you, to be with you, and let us enjoy this moment together. Ate, Joveso Hatigil Lutalo. Tay malitaw, tunga sutisigalan niya at takuninga to sakniyak tisiyinik. We will soon welcome a number of Inuit cultural performers from across Inuit Nunangat. Hukulla Hatigit is a group of Oalinamute style singers and dancers from Cambridge Bay. Together, they have 60 years of life experiences in learning of who they are. Ukakneka makinakut cha kwa tusakniyak tibut kinaku mangata. Perpartik, taga tusak niya mayut ayak Mary Anautalik, amalo Lois Suluklok, takwa tusak niya mayabut. Mary is the last living elder relocated from Enonday Lake. Ahir miulutik takwa tusak sa uner miyuk, hanok kherbaksu mga da ahir miyuyait. Te matana Lois ilinya suling muati utsunilo han palukti utsunilo kherpati utsunilo te malu kajatjatik buvernitor miuk akinisi sibuarapik amali sallualullu nukariguvuk te mali mikiyuapi utsutik ukiyo haksuti 6 tuinanik tuinanillo kadatsapalia si Juvenik ananat siya minyo Mary sibuarapin mo isaktaw sutik. And we will also hear the beautiful voice of Diantha Edmonds, who is an Inuk classical singer from Nunatsiavut. She will sing Sen Martigut Yisusi, an Inuktitut song of peace that is traditionally sung at Christmas and New Year. After Diantha, Marie tusang nielong meyugot pita ernemig khilaw chatillugo uvigaktumig khilaw chakatiharloni malakay angulalik malamig. Pita will present afterwards something special to Pope Francis. Tema nalan niya miyavut tana iksiyakjuarapig Francis khilaw chanermi piyarir pat pita erner. Finally, following the address by Pope Francis, the choir of Our Lady of the Assumption Catholic Church will sing the Lord's Prayer in Inuktitut. Ate, bigalofta, nakomig, tungasutseritsi. Please be welcome.
That was Lisa Koparkwalok, a very prominent member of the Inuit community, including serving as Vice President of the Inuit Circumpolar Council.
Welcome to Nunavut. As you watch our resilience, people who have survived, but also thrived most importantly. It's you, all of you here and at home, that has helped us get here. The people that weren't part of today, that have gone before us, are here with us today in our hearts. Talva hibulibut ilaw yung nekto talva ni ilawut talva tigumektavun ublume. We continue carry them on. I would like to introduce my family as we journey through together as a family. Paglik, maaipak, may panikang nasyak, Malachi, our youthful, young male drum dancer, Tammy Ituktok, who's an upcoming leader, my granddaughter Makaya, who's learning, and also my granddaughter Uliktok, and Noah, who's been with us throughout and continuing to heal. Juanaila.
That's Julia Ogina.
iya iya sumunam na aulay ang itpiyay tunumunin maulay ang itpiyay sumunam na iya 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 sumunam na iya iya iya
That was Elder Jen Ogina speaking for her family, performing a drum dance and song, which she said that these are spiritual, strong songs. A cultural expression is healing, and the songs are an expression of our strength. There is a resetting of the stage now as we'll be preparing to hear from 4 throat singers. So those are Sisters Mary and Lois performing a throat song, the love song it was called. Now another set of sisters, Kinnessy and Emily, will sing a throat song. the audience applauds for the throat singers. I believe next we have Diantha Edmonds Ramsey.
Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. Alleluia, het Alleluia, Alleluia, het Alleluia, 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 Alleluia. Alleluia, hungat Alleluia, Alleluia, hungat Alleluia, 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 Alleluia.
And those were sisters Akinesi and Emily. A selection of throat songs. Now we are to have Diantha Edmonds Ramsey. She's a classically trained singer, Inuit singer, and she'll be singing while Pita Ernik performs 2 rounds of drum dancing. And I believe he'll be joined by a young person as well.
Sai
tu sapati tanginivut inuvium avrutit Tamasagaid lalirapta ayuhi tutsainativut unativut naliktiluhit unativut naliktiluhit ayum naititigut sapkuni agatihut iglu asanik takpani avik sahatutitut Naligach tu satihut.
You're now preparing for a drum dance. Rita Ernik. We'll also have the Malachi youth joining.
Ay, ay,
Thank you very much. Matna Lord Kwana. Type Simani, Mumak Palak Sima Yugut, Kovia Suksuta, Kovia Suktu Marialu Pluta, Mumak Palak Sima Yugut. Amma Ublumi, Kovia Suktugut, Ixiragra, Victiki Simagmat, Nunap Tinut. Amalo, in now look to Tigut, Mumirangapta, Hilajarangapta, Tamakua, Makuk Tokotibut, Hilau Delek Paxerti. Now you did Kwa, now you did Malakai. Thank you. Ublumi, Pirkosek put Udik Palia Yavut, Pirkosivut, Okausek put Udik Palia Yavut, Ublumi. Taman Napila Rebligo, Koviana Marikto. Exerzo Rapik, Inuit Nunananu, Tikawavit, Kuyanami Marialo, Matna Loavik, thank you so much. Now, Tam Nakilaut, Atokawayavut, Huviasuti Blugo, Atokaptigo, Exerzo Rapik Mud, Huviasukpunga, Mannauyok, Ublumi, Kuyanamir Sutikila, Manunaptinut, Tuninaktara, Tamakunangan. Inulukta Tianit, Inuit, Nunangan Ninga, Lugu, Tamanda, Tuninaktara, Kilaut, Tafsumunga, Exeradora, Pigmund. Thank you, Your Holiness. Thank you very much for coming to Nunavut, Inuit, Nunangat. We are extremely happy that you came to meet with us. Thank you so much. Matna Luavik, thank you. Now I present this Inuit drum from Inuit Nunangat and give to His Holiness for his present that he remember us when he goes back to Vatican. Thank you so much.
A wonderful gesture there from Elder Pita Ernik.
Thank you!
Along with the young person, Malachi, they performed the drum dance and then presented the Holy Father with a drum to take back to Rome. Now, as part of the program, the Holy Father will provide an address with a focus on youth and elders.
Interesting to say, when he presented this gift, he's coming from, he didn't say Nunavut, he said Inuit Nunangat. So it means that he is going to have a larger vision.
That's right.
Of the land of Inuit, line and ice of Inuit.
That's right, the larger territory. And how often we've seen the drum throughout the course, that the beating of the heartbeat, as they say.
Queridos hermanos y hermanas,
Unusakuk.
Dear
Buenas
brothers and
tardes.
sisters, Unasatuk.
Saludo cordialmente a la señora gobernadora general y a todos ustedes. Estoy feliz de visitarlos. Agradezco sus palabras, los cantos, las danzas, la música, que aprecio mucho.
I greet the Governor General and all of you most heartily. I am happy to be here with you. I thank you for your words of welcome and for your songs, dances, and music, which I enjoyed greatly.
Hace poco.
Katangutika ulukut. Ilisakivaka Governor General. Amaru ilunasi. Tunga suktitiga si kuve suktunga tamani tareksak. Amaru tunga suktitaugama. Ingit tulu. Mumik tulu. Tunga suktiapunga.
Hace poco escuché a varios de ustedes, exalumnos de las escuelas residenciales. Gracias por lo que tuvieron la valentía de decir, compartiendo grandes sufrimientos que yo no hubiera imaginado. Eso ha reavivado en mí la indignación y la vergüenza que me acompañan desde hace meses. También hoy, también aquí, quisiera decirles que estoy muy apenado y quiero pedir perdón por el mal que cometieron no pocos católicos en esas escuelas, que contribuyeron a políticas de asimilación cultural y desvinculación. Mamianak. Me volvió a la mente el testimonio de un anciano que describía la belleza del clima que reinaba en las familias indígenas antes de la llegada del sistema de las escuelas residenciales. Comparaba esa época en la que los abuelos, padres e hijos estaban juntos en armonía con la primavera, cuando los pajaritos cantan felices alrededor de la mamá. Pero de repente, decía, el canto se detuvo, las familias fueron disgregadas, se llevaron a los pequeños lejos de su ambiente y el invierno descendió sobre todo.
A short while ago, I listened to several of you who are students of residential schools. I thank you for having had the courage to tell your stories and to share your great suffering that I could not imagine. This only renewed in me the indignation and shame that I have felt for months. Today too, in this place, I want to tell you how very sorry I am and to ask for forgiveness for the evil perpetrated by not a few Catholics who in these schools contributed to the policies of cultural assimilation and enfranchisement. I was reminded of the testimony of an elder who spoke of the beautiful spirit that reigned in indigenous families before the advent of the residential school system. He compared those days when grandparents, parents, and children were harmoniously together to springtime, when young birds chirp happily around their mother. But suddenly, he said, the singing stopped. Families were broken up, and the little ones were taken far away from home. Winter fell over everything.
Mana manguyuyuk tu sakti tauraw kama. Unika viulunga ilinare akatak tu vinamni. Kuyagi baka teikoa unika reaktoraktut. Amaro aksuron na kataraw tangin nilihaluting. Tana nutarok titilaw man uvanik, sirnak simaninik, tarok kujin ng miglo, takigasang no ikpigilaw taning. Ulumilo, tavani, ukauti yumavasi, suri mamianini, ukauti yumavasi, isumagi yung nertaw yumavagulo. Tamakwa pinaglung niuraw tut, Saninga yorti kuni iksirarjo kuni ilangi no ta kwa pinarlung ni urang mata amaro ilakusir sinek piyon na karuner titinarlu ilinerving ni ilinervik tigon. Ikesi yoro kama inuto kamoni karyolunga te semanigo tangningi sangi yuti lugi piu yuti lugi ilagi ngoyut katingatiak tutik ilinerak titaw kataraw katin nagi. Teisamani amma ulumi urakto takullugo angayo kagayoyut itugayoyut ningyukugayoyo anana tegayoyut kitongagilo katingatea kataraw mata upengami takwaro kupanoan ukarogaw yaktut anana menu kisianili kana inutukaw ni kaksoni kupanoan alat o karogaw yakon nilang mata ilagi nguyut sugati yaw lutik mikiyutaw yullo awlaw jaw lutik ang ikamin ni ukiyong mallo kisurima niglaksuti.
Dichas palabras, al mismo tiempo que provocan dolor, suscitan también escándalo, más aún si las confrontamos con la palabra de Dios que mandó: honra a tu padre y a tu madre para que tengas una larga vida en la tierra que el Señor tu Dios te da. Para muchas de vuestras familias esto no fue posible. Dejó de cumplirse cuando los hijos fueron separados de sus padres y el propio país fue percibido como algo peligroso y extraño. Esas asimilaciones forzadas evocan otra página bíblica, el relato del justo Nabot, que no quería ceder la viña heredada de sus padres, a quien gobernando estaba dispuesto a usar cualquier medio para quitársela. Y también vienen a la mente esas palabras fuertes de Jesús contra quien escandaliza a los pequeños y desprecia a alguno de ellos. Cuánto mal al romper los vínculos entre padres e hijos, a herir los afectos más queridos, a lastimar y escandalizar a los pequeños.
Stories like these not only cause us pain, they also create scandal. All the more so if we compare them with the Word of God and its commandment. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land which the Lord your God gives you. That possibility did not exist for many of your families. It vanished when children were separated from their parents and their own nation was perceived as dangerous and foreign. Those forced assimilations evoke another biblical story, that of the just man Naboth, who refused to give the vineyard he had inherited from his ancestors to those in power, who were willing to use every means to snatch it from him. And we think too of the forceful words of Jesus about those who scandalize or despise even one of the little ones. How evil it is to break the bonds uniting parents and children, to damage our closest relationships, to harm and scandalize the little ones.
Tamakuningaw ni kanik tusalo ni anang na tuwin ng imat pitsiyangin ng migtaw sakit itiniw mat amaro takwa takugayaw tigot gutiup okaw singit pekuya kisimayang ilo atatang ning ananang ni kamatsyak tuksaw butik inukutakulo sino nami gutiup tunisimayang aning kana ilangin nun atok tayo naksilaw ng malunin ilagi ngayon nun pitakaroner suni pivikaroner titaw lutik angayok kagayo kitong ngagil amaro taman nakapianak tulo ni alayo ang naksunilo takwaro ilakusakingit amin ni ilakusak titaw valero tilugi paipa ko tiniktaw ni kagayo si mangmingmat tahan na inutiawayok jaba nabo tunisi yumaraw si mangimmat vainisi urvingmi sivurigi yang ino kay tao si mayon piyon ng datak ti tao si mayon nun Tamakwa aglahat Jesus yu ukaw si mayangit. Tamakwa sukusi sukutigiyaw kunanigit. Pityataw kulugit. Tamanna piyungitok si kumitin ang ayokare yamini kitongangin yun. Amaro ino katigiter nomik pinang pango kataw yare kaktumik ulure anak tumiti si maluni kape anak tumiti si malunilo.
Queridos amigos, estamos aquí con voluntad de recorrer juntos un camino de sanación y de reconciliación, que con el auxilio del Creador nos ayuda a dar luz sobre lo sucedido y a superar el pasado oscuro. A propósito de vencer la oscuridad, también ahora, como en nuestro encuentro de fines de marzo, ustedes han encendido el kulik. Este, además de dar luz durante las largas noches invernales, permitía, difundiendo calor, resistir al rigor del clima. Por tanto, era esencial para vivir. También hoy permanece como un bellísimo símbolo de vida, de un vivir luminoso que no se rinde ante la oscuridad de la noche. Así son ustedes, un testimonio perenne de la vida que no se apaga, de una luz que resplandece y que ninguno logra sofocar.
Dear friends, we are here with a desire to pursue together a journey of healing and reconciliation that, with the help of the Creator, can help us shed light on what happened and move beyond that dark past. As a way of dispelling the darkness, now too, as in our meeting at the end of March, you have lit the kulek. Not only did the kulek give light amid the long winter nights, it also relieved the harshness of the weather by spreading heat. In this way, it was essential for living. Even today, this lamp remains a beautiful symbol of life, of a luminous way of living that does not yield to the darkness of the night. That is what you are, a perennial testimony to the life that never ends, a light that shines and that no one has been able to extinguish.
Ilan na kaya kamani pugut ataw tikut mami palya ng mol anagui palya ng mol si bumak palya yung maluta akla katigigluta ikayok tauruta sana yitinut kau may palya yung nakata kanuin ni urok tunik amaro at teko api yung ito aro urok tut kangit palya rugi taman na taktuk kau magpalya kulugu March mid katimani urok tuk Tekane kulang mig ikumak sa iyo karauman. Tana kulik pimakiw si mangmat ukiukut tak tume kaumat jutaw luni. Agla niglasong ng me unak si titi ukutiti si maluni. Amaro umat jutaw si mangman. Ulumilo tana kulik piyo yung makayarong man inusitinut narunay kutaw luni. Tana taktok kau magpalya yung nang man ama unwak ulamo kau magluni. Teme tuvuti. Narunay kuta. Kau mayuluni. Kami tao yung nang ito.
Estoy muy agradecido por la oportunidad de estar aquí en el Nunavut, dentro del Inuit Nunagat. He intentado imaginar, después de nuestro encuentro en Roma, estos vastos lugares donde viven desde tiempos inmemorables y que para otros serían hostiles. Ustedes han sabido amarlos, respetarlos, custodiarlos y apreciarlos, transmitiendo valores fundamentales de generación en generación, como el respeto por los ancianos, un genuino sentido de fraternidad y el cuidado del medio ambiente. Hay una hermosa y armónica correspondencia entre ustedes y la tierra que habitan, porque también esta es fuerte y resiliente y responde con mucha luz a la oscuridad que la envuelve durante gran parte del año. Pero también esta tierra, como cada persona y cada población, es delicada y necesita ser cuidada. Cuidarla, transmitir el cuidado. A esto en particular están llamados los jóvenes, sostenido por el ejemplo de los ancianos. Cuidar la tierra, cuidar las personas, cuidar la historia.
I am grateful for this opportunity to be here in Nunavut within Inuit Nunangat. I tried to imagine, after our meeting in Rome, these vast places that you have inhabited from time immemorial and that others would consider inhospitable. You have come to love these places, to respect, cherish, and enhance them, passing on from generation to generation such basic values as respect for the elderly, genuine fraternity, and care for the environment. There is a beautiful relationship between you and this land you inhabit, because it too is strong and resilient and responds with brilliant light to the darkness that enshrouds it for most of the year. Yet this land, like every individual and every people, is also fragile and needs to be cared for. Caring, teaching, and learning how to care. To this task, young people in particular, supported by the example of their elders, have been called. Care for the earth, care for your people, care for your history.
Kovesuk punga pilikat titaw gama tamani no nang vomo ko naktunga amma Inuit no nangano. Isumana surok tunga Rome me katima katigilaw tiluta tamanna nunagiyasi te mga tokaro kano ilangin no isumagayaw kataktok nunaksaw ngigyak sanganing Kisiani tamanna nunagigasiw piugilugu pinagilugu amaru piusitigiala kataksugu Kauyumanagayasi kingubasinut kauyumarati palyalusiw Inutokang nilu ikpigusuteatusi Amaru avatisini kamateatusi Tamanna piuyo arongman Nuna sinilu pilo atakam nagayasi Tamanna tau sangiyok asiguyo ito Amaru Kaume valia sunguluni tangniu yumi Akagu ilawani tagara katakaruak tilugu Tamanna nuna piusukiyang atakulugu ilisititut Temeituk nikanaktuluni ikpigiyaw teageri Ikpigusutianek iliseinek amaru ilineatitsinek Tamanna inusuktunak sa yunut piluaktumik ikayosok tau tilugi tasiyok tau tilugillo inutokang nun inamnullo Ati Tana nunakjoak kamagitiak siyuk inukutisilo amaro atoksimayasi.
Quisiera entonces dirigirme a ti, joven Inuit, futuro de esta tierra y presente de su historia. Quisiera decirte, citando a un gran poeta, lo que has heredado de tus padres, gánatelo para poseerlo. No basta vivir de rentas. Es necesario volver a ganarse lo que se ha recibido como don. Por tanto, no temas escuchar una y otra vez los consejos de los más ancianos, abrazar tu historia para escribir páginas nuevas, apasionarte, tomar posición frente a los hechos y a las personas, arriesgarte. Y para ayudarte a hacer resplandecer la lámpara de tu existencia, también yo quisiera darte como hermano anciano 3 consejos.
I would like now to address you, Inuit youth, the future of this land and the present of its history. I would like to say to you, in the words of a great poet, that which you inherited from your fathers must first be earned before it can become yours. It is not enough to live off the past. It is necessary to earn what was given to you as a gift. Do not be afraid then to continue listening to the counsels of the elderly, to embrace your past in order to write new pages of history, to be passionate, to take a stand before facts and people, to get involved, to help you make the lamp of your lives shine brightly. I too, as an elder brother, would like to offer you 3 pieces of advice.
Inusuktu makuktut Inuit, ukauti yumarakpasi. Sivuniksa tamananuna, amara ulume, teiko atuktaw katak simayut. Ukauti yumavasi, titiraktaw simayumi. Atatang ni pitari lauktat, pitari tuin nakon nangin nabio, ayokon nerlutit, piyo naksilutit lu, piyari kami gabi. Ay tu seari gabi, kapya sungnak, naray nari. Amaro tasir tau katarluti inutukang no. Tako atong nikuyut, ikilugi. Atong neaktasinik, nutanik, titirak paliariti. Ikpigusutiarlusi, pilluriglusi. Amaro suriyunik, pilluridlusi, nikuvinga katallusi. Pikatao katariti. Ikayolusi, takwa kaumani, inusi sinut, sakriyate akullugi. Tanaro inutukalune, pingasunik ukausik sa karibo, ikayutik sani.
Primero de los consejos, camina hacia lo alto. Vives en estas vastas regiones del norte, que ellas te recuerden tu vocación a tender hacia lo alto, sin dejarse tirar abajo por quien quiere hacerte creer que es mejor pensar solo en ti mismo y usar el tiempo que tienes únicamente para tu diversión y tus intereses. Amigo, no estás hecho para ir tirando, para pasar las jornadas equilibrando deberes y placeres. Estás hecho para volar alto, hacia los deseos más verdaderos y hermosos que tienes en el corazón, hacia Dios para amarlo y hacia el prójimo para servirlo. No pienses que los grandes sueños de la vida sean cielos inalcanzables. No, estás hecho para levantar el vuelo, para abrazar la valentía de la verdad y promover la belleza de la justicia, para elevar tu temple moral, ser compasivo, servir a los demás y construir relaciones, para sembrar paz y cuidado donde te encuentres, para encender el entusiasmo de los que te rodean, para ir más allá, no para igualarlo todo.
The first piece of advice is keep walking upwards. You live in these vast regions of the north. May they remind you of your vocation to strive ever higher, without letting yourself get dragged down by those who would have you believe that it is better to think only of yourself and to use your time solely for your leisure and your interests. Friends, you were not made to get by, to spend your days balancing duties and pleasures, but you were made to soar upwards towards the most genuine, true, and beautiful desires that you cherish in your hearts, to love God and to serve your neighbor. Don't think that life's great dreams are as unattainable as the sky above. No, you were made to fly to embrace the courage of truth and the beauty of justice, to elevate your moral temper, to be compassionate, to serve others, and to build relationships, to sow seeds of peace and loving care wherever you are, to ignite the enthusiasm of all of those all around you, to keep pressing forward and not to flatten everything out.
Sivulak pa o kausik sa kayo tiksa kayo magayak tanga kayo sigit pangak palegit tamana yo kayo tatumyo taulusi kayo sigiti pinaswang na kaya si pangak kanne abungak kanne pigaswakiti Amaro kataksak tao guro ako si nukangaw tiging ilugi. Imen upe ko sugi akakabit. Iling nitong itok. Akakayang nang metuin nang itok lo. Kasi ani ikayok tiging nang mik. Amaro inutu ila. Inutuin nang nami. Inuna sa gatuin naktuk sa raungit nasi. Kasi ani makita ko lusi. Piuramo amaro guti nagligilugu sanilriya silo tamakwa inusang me sinaktu mani piyum piyaksang ngigyangin nik isumatu nang ilusi sorlo inuksaktu tituk kilang me kisani ikpigasutiarlusi asisinik piyitsirlusi inu katekatiarlusi Inui upering magutaman na ang makangak suilusi kapya suyui turusi nagling nikorlusi ang marutaman na kaumagyarlugo sivo mo agutigitiakan na kullugo sivo ni si manera si titao gayakto.
Pero me podrían decir, vivir así es más arduo que volar. Cierto, no es fácil. Porque siempre estás echando esa fuerza de gravedad espiritual que empuja para tirarnos abajo, para paralizar los deseos, para debilitar la alegría. Entonces, piensa en la golondrina del Ártico, que nosotros llamamos charrán. Esa no deja que los vientos contrarios o los cambios de temperatura le impidan ir de un lado a otro de la tierra. A veces elige caminos que no son directos, acepta desviaciones, se adapta a ciertos vientos, pero siempre mantiene la meta, siempre va a su destino. Encontrará gente que intentará borrar tus sueños, que te dirá que te conformes con poco, que luches solo por lo que te conviene. Entonces te preguntarás, ¿por qué tengo que esforzarme por algo en lo que los demás no creen? Y además, ¿cómo puedo volar en un mundo que parece que cae cada vez más bajo? En medio de escándalos, guerras, engaños, injusticias, destrucción del ambiente, indiferencia hacia los más débiles, decepciones por parte de los que tendrían que dar el ejemplo. Ante estas preguntas, ¿cuál es la respuesta?
But you might say, to live like that is harder than flying. Certainly, it is not easy, because there is a kind of hidden force of spiritual gravity that tries to drag us down, paralyze our desires, and lessen our joy. Keep thinking of the Arctic swallow that in Spanish we call a charán. It does not let headwinds or sudden changes in temperature stop it from flying from one end of the earth to the other. At times, it chooses alternate routes, accepts detours, adapts to certain winds, but it always has a clear goal, and it always arrives at its destination. You will meet people who will try to erase your dreams, who will tell you to settle for less, to fight only for what is in your interest. Then you will have to ask yourself, why do I need to go out of my way for what other people do not believe in? Or again, how can I soar in a world that seems constantly to be dragged down by scandals, wars, fraud, injustice, environmental destruction, indifference towards those in need, disillusionment from those who should be giving an example? Faced with these questions, what is the answer?
Kisiane aperitu okatuinara yakatosi tana okausik yanga ayong nang naksauman kangata yung nanginata. Kisiane li ayong nakarawa tilugu ukperosung namet tamne tinne pitakang memmat umarea kasumik kisiane katak titaw nasungo kasi gata amarupi yung manakayabot nung utataw kaya sunguluti. Amma kuvea sungnek pirtaw na susunguluni. Tana ikaysi jutigi jaha kupanoa Spanish titut. Tana kupanoa. Tao vangato karong ungasik tuarong met. Mau nga ukiok takto mo patong, mau nga palea tilugo, ako naktukusuk, ano jo akusu silang nalukulo. Kisiani iku nga yaya kalnene takun natuneo, tao nga kayo sinasok, tao nga teiku nga kaya kakame. Amaro iling nun aperitu na kaktuti kanoy Teman na itaya kapunga ukperosuk to kaktin nago uvaroni kanuarog li tema ape kataw yun nakama. Nunak joami. Tema nga rin makatagsak tayo na so katak tiluta makunong api yung itunod katak tiri yunot suruk tiri yunot lu amaro avatitinik piyo yunot titeba sukana yunik tamakwa Tamajaro tilugi kanwe tumili uktu tik sakta katiapa tamakwa apekutik say sakka katak tilugi kanong likiu yao yun nakpan.
Quisiera decirte a ti, joven, a ti, hermano y hermana joven, tú eres la respuesta. Tu hermano, tu hermana. No solo porque si te rindes ya perdiste de antemano, sino porque el futuro está en tus manos la comunidad que te ha generado, el ambiente en el que vives, la esperanza de tus coetáneos, de los que aún sin pedírtelo esperan de ti el bien original e irrepetible que puedes introducir en la historia, porque cada uno de nosotros es único. El mundo que habitas es la riqueza que has heredado. Ámalo como te ha amado quien te ha dado la vida y las alegrías más grandes, como te ama Dios, que por ti ha creado todo lo bello que existe y no deja de confiar en ti, ni siquiera por un brevísimo instante. Él cree en tus talentos. Cada vez que lo busques comprenderás cómo el camino que te llama a recorrer tiende siempre hacia lo alto. Lo advertirás cuando rezando mires el cielo y sobre todo cuando alces la mirada al crucificado. Entenderás que Jesús desde la cruz no te señala con el dedo, sino que te abraza, te anima, porque cree en ti, aunque tú mismo has dejado de creer en ti. Entonces no pierdas nunca la esperanza. Lucha, dalo todo y no te arrepentirás. Sigue adelante el camino, un paso tras otro hacia lo mejor. Instala el navegador de tu existencia hacia una meta grande, hacia lo alto.
Here is what I would tell you, young people. You are the answer. You, my brother, and you, my sister, you are the answer. Not just because once you give up, you have already lost, but because the future is even now in your hands. The community that gave you birth, the environment in which you live, the hope of your peers, of those who, without even asking, expect from you the irreplaceable treasure that you can bring to history. All these things are in your hands. because each one of us is unique. The world you are living in is the treasure you have inherited. Love it, even as God, who gave you life and its great joys, loved you and created all this great beauty for you. God never ceases to have confidence in you, not for a second. He believes in your talents. When you seek Him, you will come to realize how the path He calls you to follow always goes upwards. You will realize this when you look up at the sky as you pray, and especially when you contemplate Him on the cross. You will come to realize that Jesus, from the cross, never points His finger at you. He embraces you and encourages you because He believes in you, even at those times when you stop believing in yourself. So never lose hope. Fight. Give it your all, and you will not be sorry. Go forward on your journey, step by step, towards the best. Set the GPS of your lives on a great destination, upwards.
Ima o kau tigayak pasi, kiu juta uvusi, kavalaki uvusili. Sa pililaw ni sinong ito, sa araw si manit sino, tuinaw ito, kisiani sibuniksak, tigumeakasiw. Nuna ring ni, pero si magasi, avati silo tamana, niriyong naktaro titiavaw, yun nagmat, inokatigiya silo, aglat apiriyaw raw na, niriyong naktakang mat, King of Vigak saung itumik, tunek ko siya kang nomik. Tamakwa, tigumeakasiw, upinakani ilun nasi, ajiging ituinawasi. Ajiging ituinawata. Tamanna, nunakjoang inuvigi yavut. Sanayaw tiyak si mayong arong matpiuyo lunilu ilingot sanayaw si mayong. Ambaro, upiritiar lugit piyon nang narayasi, pikaw narayasi. Tuksiara nga silo, tapaw nga kivya nga katarlusi, kawya katar nertusi, kilang mod, kivya nga tilusi, pilo aktumik, sanni nga yumon, tana Jesusi, ilingnik tikur tuigum nangimat kisianili ikitingaso tiliuritiasong uloni ilingnilu upirusungmat piloaktumik iminik upirik yunailiyarangasi neriunermik asiuyiteilitearisi kayusitearisi unatariti ammaru ugwajan itu si tema kayu si gusi si bumuagiti alok palengin narlo si piu nagpamot pinaswa katarlo si tanaru tamarikuti akid lusi inusisini tapaw nga kayu si gitti.
El segundo consejo, ir hacia la luz. En los momentos de tristeza y desconsuelo, piensa en el kulik, que tiene un mensaje para ti. ¿Cuál? Que existe para ir hacia la luz cada día, no solo el día de tu nacimiento, cuando no dependió de ti, sino cada día. Cotidianamente estás llamado a llevar una luz nueva al mundo, la luz de tus ojos, la de tu sonrisa, la del bien que tú y solo tú puedes aportar, no lo puede aportar otro. Pero para ir hacia la luz hay que luchar cada día con la oscuridad. Sí, hay una lucha cotidiana entre la luz y las tinieblas, que no sucede afuera, en un lugar cualquiera, sino dentro de cada uno de nosotros. El camino de la luz requiere valientes decisiones del corazón contra la oscuridad de las falsedades. Requiere desarrollar buenas costumbres para vivir bien, que no se sigan a estelas luminosas que desaparecen fugazmente, fuegos artificiales que solo dejan humo, son espejismos, parodias de la felicidad, como dijo aquí en Canadá San Juan Pablo II. Quizás no haya tiniebla más densa que la que se introduce en el alma de los jóvenes cuando falsos profetas apagan en ellos la luz de la fe, de la esperanza y del amor. Hermano, hermana, Jesús te acompaña, te desea iluminar el corazón para guiarte hacia la luz. Él dijo, yo soy la luz del mundo, pero también dijo a sus discípulos, ustedes son la luz del mundo. Por tanto, también tú eres luz del mundo y lo serás cada vez más si luchas para alejar del corazón la triste oscuridad del mal.
The second piece of advice is, come to the light. When you feel sad or downcast, think of the kulik. It has a message for you. What message? That you are meant to come into the light each day. Not just on the day of your birth, when it did not depend on you, but every day. Each day you are called to bring new light into the world. The light of your eyes, the light of your smile, the light of your goodness that you and only you can bring. Yet to come into the light, to be reborn, you need to fight each day against the darkness. Yes, there is a daily clash between light and darkness, which does not take place somewhere out there, but within each one of us. To follow the way of light requires courageous and heartfelt decisions to resist the darkness of lies. It means developing good habits to live well, not to chase bursts of light that disappear quickly, fireworks that leave only smoke in their wake. These are illusions, parodies of happiness, as St. John Paul II said here in Canada. And I quote, "There is perhaps no darkness deeper than the darkness that enters young people's souls when false prophets extinguish in them the light of faith and hope and love." End of the quotation. Dear brother, dear sister, Jesus is close to you, and he wants to light up your heart, to make you come to the light. He said of himself, "I am the light of the world." But he also told his disciples, "You are the light of the world." You too then are light for the world, and you will shine all the brighter if you struggle to cast out the dark shadows of evil from your heart.
Ay pau kau siksak ilisinut tunay umayak gayak taka kau manamoari numasurigovit kataksimargovillo kullit itkakatarlogo ilingnut ukau siksakangmat kau taman kau manamo katarya kakatak kau maya katarya kasungulutaru inunang ni pigyatun nakangitok kasi ane kau taman, kau maksaya katarya kakata. Kau manang milu, takuk sa utiti yung naktusi, nunak joang mot, iyisi, kungan nisi, amaru, naragot siya nak, ivito alo tana, tunakutigi yung nasukilugo. Kau manang molo ni, inusutan nuta kautama pinaswa katarlugo I piungitolu piuyolu unaten nasu tak tavani sakyangi karuapat takuksaung itumi temeliung nasungumat aglad ilutinni kaumanamon kayu silusi ilikusitia vaktang na inutia kutiksanik tana tukikangmat Solo kumoayut puyong nakimay sungong mata kasi anita ko ata lego titu nausud. Inusuk tunod itinaksarang may tanong may pitakari sungong man. Tana kauman ng may kami tinasong niyo sungulo ni niriyong ng may ang managling ng may. Katangotika o kautibasi Jesus iling no kanimat amaro kaumay yumaluni ivi umatinganik tana o kaksimayok nunakjuang me kaumaniwunga amaro iliniak takutiminun o karaw simang mingmat kaumaniwusi ilisitaw kaumaniwusi nunakjuang mo kaumatiariti aksorong nek tana pirlugu umatisini.
Para aprender a hacerlo hay que adquirir un arte continuo que requiere superar las dificultades y las contradicciones por medio de una búsqueda continua de soluciones. Es el arte de separar cada día la luz de las tinieblas. Para crear un mundo bueno, dice la Biblia, Dios comenzó justamente así, separando la luz de las tinieblas. También nosotros, si queremos ser mejores, tenemos que aprender a distinguir la luz de las tinieblas. ¿Por dónde se empieza? Puedes empezar preguntándote, ¿qué es lo que me parece luminoso y seductor, pero después me deja dentro un gran vacío? Estas son las tinieblas. En cambio, ¿qué es lo que me hace bien y me deja paz en el corazón, aunque antes me haya pedido que saliera de ciertas comodidades y que dominara ciertos instintos? Esta es la luz. Y me sigo preguntando, ¿cuál es la fuerza que nos permite separar dentro de nosotros la luz de las tinieblas, que nos hace decir no a las tentaciones del mal y sí a las ocasiones del bien? Es la libertad. Libertad que no es hacer todo lo que me parece y me gusta, no es aquello que puedo hacer a pesar de los otros, sino por los otros. No es un total arbitrio, sino responsabilidad. La libertad es el don más grande que nuestro Padre Celestial nos ha dado junto con la vida.
To do this, there is a skill that we have to acquire, one that calls for overcoming difficulties and contradictions through a continuous search for solutions. It is the art of daily separating light from darkness. To create a good world, the Bible tells us, God began just like that, by separating the light from the darkness. We too, if we want to become better, must learn to distinguish light from darkness. Where do we start? You can start by asking yourself, what are the things that first strike me as glittery and seductive, but then leave me with a feeling of deep emptiness? That is the darkness. What, on the other hand, is good for me and leaves a feeling of peace in my heart, even if it first calls me to give up certain conveniences and to master certain instincts? That is the light. And I ask again, what is the power that enables us to separate the light from the darkness within us? That enables us to say no to the temptations of evil and yes to all that is good? It is freedom. Freedom does not mean doing everything I want and acting as I please. Freedom is not about what I can do in spite of others, but what I can do for others. Freedom is not total caprice, but responsibility. Freedom, along with life, is the greatest gift that our Heavenly Father has given us.
Teme kulusi ayon na kaya karebusi. Tana anigwe katangnak aksorong naktunig ukumay tuniglo. Akigutik sanig kinakatakaya kamnorlo. Taman na kau taman avikti jutau yaya kaso kau manermik tang nong miglu. Nunak joami piu yumik Pikulluta paipaku titigut ukaw jovugut guti temak pigerok simangman. Kaumanik tang naglu tak tuklu aviklugi. Uvagut tauk temak piyum nakivugut kaumayuk tak tuklu kauyamaraglugi. Nakilipigi ako nakpita. Uvatini apiriyun naktugut. Kisu tema sibulak panguruni uvan nokilak tuk piyuminak tukluva. Kisu tema uvan ni sunaw titiyun ni katakpa. Iludakakon ni titi katakpa. Tana tang ni uluni. Ay pangangagulu kisu tema piyuva. Amaru ikping na itian naktuk umatini sema ni kaktitiyo. Tana sibulak pa akaw na niuluni kaw maniuvo. Amaru apirikanak punga. Kisu tema piyon nang nak kang niuva avik titiyon naktuk kaw mayong mik tak tumiglu ilutini. Uvatinik akaron naktitiyo. Amaro angiron naktitiso. Tana isumaksaron ng niuman. Isumaksaron ng tukikakpok. Ilanikut piyong ato kumangitakarwatini ato katareakang nitini. Taman na isumaksaron ng asitinutaw. Inusiup iloani tana piyunak pango katangat.
Por último, el tercer consejo, hacer equipo. Los jóvenes hacen grandes cosas juntos, no solos, porque ustedes jóvenes son como las estrellas del cielo, que aquí brillan de manera espléndida. Su belleza nace del conjunto de las constelaciones que forman e iluminan y orientan las noches del mundo. También ustedes, llamados a las alturas del cielo y a resplandecer en la tierra, están hechos para brillar juntos. Es necesario permitir a los jóvenes que formen grupos, que estén en movimiento. No pueden pasar las jornadas aislados, rehenes de un teléfono. Los grandes glaciares de estas tierras me hacen pensar en el deporte nacional del Canadá, el hockey sobre hielo. ¿Cómo es posible que Canadá conquiste todas las medallas olímpicas? ¿Cómo hicieron Sarah Nurse o Marie-Philippe Poulin para marcar todos esos goles? El hockey conjuga bien disciplina y creatividad, táctica y físico, pero lo que hace la diferencia siempre es el espíritu de equipo, presupuesto indispensable para afrontar las imprevisibles circunstancias del juego. Hacer equipo significa creer que para alcanzar grandes objetivos no se puede avanzar solos. Es necesario moverse juntos, tener la paciencia de combinar pases y movimientos para tejer estrategias de juego. También significa dejar espacio a los demás, salir rápidamente cuando es el propio turno y alentar a los compañeros. Ese es el espíritu de equipo.
Finally, the third piece of advice, be part of a team. Young people do great things together, not alone. You young people are like the stars in the sky, which shine so marvelously on this land. Their beauty comes from the whole, from the constellations that make up, which give light and provide bearings in the nights of this world. You too, called to the heights of heaven and to shine here on earth, are made to shine together in unison. Young people have to be allowed to congregate, to be on the move. They can't spend their days alone, hostage to a cell phone. The great glaciers of these lands make me think of Canada's national sport, ice hockey. How does Canada manage to win all those Olympic medals? How did Sarah Nurse or Marie-Philippe Poulin get to score all those goals? Hockey combines discipline and creativity, tactics and physical strength but team spirit always makes the difference. It is essential for responding to the unpredictability of every game. Teamwork means believing that in order to achieve great goals, you cannot go it alone. You have to move together, to have the patience to practice and carry out complicated plays. Teamwork also involves making room for others, dashing out quickly when it is your turn, and cheering on your teammates. That is team spirit.
Kingulok pamelo kaji umagaya revonga. Taperi kasi katu jinek pilere kateging nek tamanna makuk tunod katu jauh toa kami atau seo kategi toa kami piu yo arong nik piu nang mata avonga kalarog lu tiki uti yunang iluti inutung iluti makuk tut ulureng ugasi ulureng titu ugasi kau makatak tut kau maya katak tut tamani nunagi yasini tamanna ilu itu juti yasiu piu yo aruluni ulureng ukatigid temak amiswaro katang mata ilisitaw temak kau makatigi kung nakibusi ataw siyo katigi lusi makuktut katitun nakatagaya kak mata ingi kakatang lutiglo inututoy nakatagaya kang itut ukaraw tegaranolo atong yaktaw si matuy nang iluti tamani nunagiyasin ni ilkaygama kanadami ila takwa awyuituit ilkay sige yakka kanadami pingwa ko tiga kataktasin ni hakiming kanuano kanadami ut pingwa vigjuak to kaktilugo Olympic madutangin na sunguvan kanuano takwa pisika ngayud Sarah Nurse Ovarone Marie Philip Polon skoa ko nakataksimavad hakim nek tamanna aksuru taulune pilim maksaw taulune pekatang mat ambaru isi maksakseo katang mata kanukan nek piyun ng mga ata timimigulu ikaili saklutik sangik ti saklutik pekatang mata kisiani ataw seo katigig tutik amaru katujilu ti pisu temaglu pekulusi inutungin nasi ataw tikut ingi kakatigigon nakayakang nek kinuisa akong namnalo ayon nek sakatang nek pilim magsakatanglo ni tema ikayok tigi katanglo ni uluid ilangin ni ayong nakatangman katudya katigi tiaglo ni katudya katigi tiag nek pivekak titiyakayakang ni usugong mingmat asitin ni amaro makwa agvertut agverterlugi amaro kikaksiyaka nga vetana asit ikayoksong milugo tamanna tapering niyongman katudya katiging niyongman.
Amigos, caminen hacia lo alto, vayan cada día hacia la luz y hagan equipo. Y hagan todo esto en vuestra cultura, en el hermosísimo lenguaje Inuktitut. Les deseo que escuchando a los ancianos y recurriendo a la riqueza de vuestras tradiciones y de vuestra libertad, abracen el Evangelio custodiado y transmitido por sus antepasados y que encuentren el rostro Inuk de Jesucristo. Los bendigo de corazón y les digo, Ujanamik.
Friends, keep walking upwards. Come to the light each day and be part of a team. Do all this within your own culture and in the very beautiful Inuktitut language. It is my hope and prayer that by listening to your elders and drawing from the richness of your traditions and your personal freedom, you will embrace the gospel preserved and handed down by your ancestors, and thus come to see the Inuk face of Jesus Christ. I bless you from my heart, and to all of you I say, Kuyanami.
It's not another.
Inukatika, kayo sigiti, pisu nariti. Kaumamo katarlusi, amaropi katarusi. Tana inuktut, ukause inuksi, inuktitungnek, atok lugu, ilikusisi, atok katarlugu. Amaro niriungnek, tukse katang nerlu, nara katarlusi, inutokamnik, inamnik. Amaro ilikusisi ngatut, piusisi ni tamakkoa, atong lugit, amaro nang minak isumaksukun nang ni, atong milugo. Amaro takkoa gus pilit, sivunis siningak simayut, tigurugit, amaro takurugo, inyo kinanga tana Jesus say maktipasi umatini amaro ilisinurima ukakpunga kuyan nami.
For the Holy Father finishing his address and is being presented with a stole, a sealskin stole.
But now, Father, on the prayer of Christ, our Lord, and say,
Our Father,
who art
art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you,
Blessed be the name of Lord.
who made the heaven and earth.
Our help is the name of Lord. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
The Holy Father imparting his blessing upon the people after the Our Father, and Father Daniel Perot and the choir from Our Lady of Assumption Catholic Church will sing the Lord's Prayer in a Inuktitut now.
Bini atani Pitinata violete goli, piung itomi.
Certainly some expressions of affection from those gathered saying, we love you. That concludes the program with the completion of the singing of the Our Father and Inictitut. The Holy Father, I believe, will now be heading to the airport. He's actually going to have a courtesy call with the Governor General, Mary Simon and Whit Fraser. Now, you'll recall when he arrived in Edmonton, he did meet with them and met with them throughout, so most recently at the Citadel. And now we won't have the dignitaries that were present on his original arrival, but in place of that, he'll be making that phone call. And a warm applause from those who are gathered here at Nakasuk School to see the Holy Father. Certainly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Iqaluit, a very small area, 7,500 people. Certainly a very warm goodbye at the end.
Ikaluit Square, ilaning ito inyong titur kanok tayo sugo mga kaway mga inagko kisiani nikihakmat tumasuksyalo si ate nikihatawiyak tulawit si. All right, Amalo. For those leaving on the charter, there is a bus. There are 2 school buses that you can take.
So the Holy Father is making his way to the airport. It's been a busy day. We've seen a meeting with an Indigenous delegation that was in Quebec City, and then the Holy Father did hop on the plane around noon to fly to Iqaluit. And then he had a private meeting with survivors of residential schools. The meeting was originally scheduled for 45 minutes, Francis, but it went, I would say, about an hour and a half. I think we started the program was supposed to start at 5 p.m. It started about 5:45, so it went about a considerable amount over time, anyways. But again, I think that's a testament to the closeness that the Holy Father has had with having those personal connections with the elders and the people he's met throughout this trip.
Yeah, we can imagine how difficult it might have been for, just a elder of 85 years old normally would we would never prepare a trip like that for our own grandparents, but now it's like, this Holy Father is really completely dedicated to his mission, and the priority is the people he needs to meet and the comfort he needs to give to people. So I think that's a really strong testament to his dedication towards the Indigenous people in general all over the world. And I'm pretty sure all the Indigenous people, whether they are in South America, in Oceania, in Australia, all over in Canada, I think they will watch this, I'd say, and give them confidence and give them the deep, I would say, deep confidence that they have an important role to play in worldly, and the world needs them. The entire world needs them to move forward globally, I think.
Absolutely. So certainly some very important words to the Indigenous people, specifically to the Inuit. In the Holy Father's most recent address. Of course, you can find that SNL media.org/blog. We'll be posting that address on there. He met earlier, as I said, with an Indigenous delegation. As well, he did meet with the members of the Society of Jesus. And the Holy Father himself is a Jesuit. And in fact, as a Jesuit, Salt and Light Media CEO Father Alan Fogarty was part of that meeting. He's been on the ground over the course of the papal trip, and he joins us now on the phone. Father, welcome. Can you share what it was like to be able to have that encounter with the Pope, a Jesuit, along with your brother Jesuits?
Well, it was a very interesting thing. We were all staying in the Jesuit community, and while some of us were other places, but met there, and we all walked over to the residence of Cardinal Lacroix this morning for the meeting with Pope Francis. It was a very exciting kind of moment, and exciting for those who were about to meet Pope Francis for the first time. And so we went in and we sat down, and he came very soon after that, and we spent about an hour. And for me, I have to say it was my 9th meeting with him. So I've seen over time how he is with Jesuits, how he is in different scenarios. And here this morning, he was just really relaxed. And for me, it was like a Jesuit community meeting, with people you live with, people that you share your life with and your ministry with and your prayer and reflection. And he was just very open. He spoke about a number of things. He took questions, very, very friendly, and again, encouraging, and always encouraging others to play their part and to be active in our ministry and in keeping with the church and how we work with particularly Indigenous now. That was part of the theme today. So just really open and friendly.
Sounds like a wonderful encounter, Father. I also wanted to ask you about the documentary that Salt and Light Television produced prior to the Pope's visit, Walking Together. I understand there's been quite a bit of buzz in the journey on the ground as you've been traveling with the Holy Father about Walking Together and the preparations for the follow-up documentary. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, Matthew. It's very good to be hearing from people who have seen it, who have reflected on it, and so the responses have been so far quite positive, and people are understanding what it is that we're trying to do with this documentary, and that is to set a tone, listening to the Indigenous share their stories, so it also gives them an opportunity to talk about their experiences, what happened in the residential schools, or if they're children of survivors and so on, the generational pain that's been caused and damage that's been done there. So to allow that to happen, part of it takes place in March, April in Rome when Pope Francis apologized on April 1st. And so we see that apology woven into the sharing pieces of the Indigenous along the way. And so you see kind of there a bit of a dialogue that's starting, a relationship that's there. And Francis really wants a relationship to be there. He cares very much. And so that came through, and people are picking that up. They're learning what the issues are. They're experiencing through the various people sharing, learning what went on and how much pain is there. So we're really kind of, I think, doing something that is helpful, and that is our objective. And so the second documentary, we've committed to 3, and we could do more than 3, but committed to 3 at this point. Vatican Bureau Chief Jen Kolbsteg came over to Canada 2 weeks before Pope Francis arrived for this journey. Excuse me, and she did all kinds of interviews and traveled to Rankin Inlet and Edmonton and different places, picking up the anticipation in people for Francis' arrival, and to hear more stories of maybe from a different angle than are in the first documentary. So then she went back to Rome. 2 days later, she got on the papal flight, and so she came back over. She's been here tracking all of the movements recording the movements of Pope Francis in his meetings and masses and encounters for the second documentary, which we will try to focus on a much more positive tone, one that is really coming from the first one, which is educational and has quite a bit of pain in it, and moving that into a second one that's positive and forward-looking. And to do that, we will refer to the speeches and the homilies that Pope Francis delivered these days. And so his call to personal responsibility and engagement for all of us, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, to move forward and to move forward together. So we're really quite excited about the second one, which we hope will be out sometime later this year.
Certainly something for us to look forward to. And yes, that first documentary, Walking Together, really did an excellent job framing the Holy Father's visit. So the sequel, so to speak, we definitely look forward to that. I have one more question for you, Father Fogarty. Just as the Holy Father's visit to Canada draws near to a close, what are some of your lasting thoughts about this historic pilgrimage of penance?
Well, I think if anything, it is definitely, as you say, historic. It is one of penance, and Pope Francis, is very, very apologetic. He's very sincerely feeling for the people of Canada, for the Indigenous in particular, all of those who suffered in any way. He carries, of course, a great deal of pain for the church and for priests and bishops and all that didn't go the way it should have back in those days. And as we work today to try to be sure that those things don't happen again, that we are there as upstanding Christians and Catholics in positions of leadership and so on to bring people to Jesus. And so his messages time and time again over the last week have been really geared to, here is what you can do that is positive. Here is what you can do to move into a better place, toward peace. And all of that is taking, the personal leap into saying, I'm going to take this on. You need courage to do that. You need prayer to do that. But we also need each other to do it. And so let's work together. And as the title of the first documentary, and is in many other places, Walking Together, that accompaniment is there. And we are really seeing it with the various leaders of the Indigenous. I myself have spoken to Chief Wilton Littlechild and Chief Tony Alexis and Phil Fontaine. Also, all three, they're so ready to work with their own people and with us. So they're working with Salt and Light. They're working with, us as we try to put this together for the second documentary. I've mentioned it to them, and I said, I can't do this alone. Salt and Light cannot do this alone. We need you. We need your opinion so that we have the right tone, we have the right respect, we have the sensitivities considered. And they said, we will work with you. It was beautiful. I have to say, each time it was just a beautiful response.
Yes, certainly there's been that emphasis on the importance of relationships throughout this trip, so it's wonderful to see that materializing. So thank you very much, Father Alan Fogarty, for joining us today and taking some time out of your travels to be with us.
My pleasure, Matthew, and all the best as the visit, makes its final journeys, and the Pope eventually makes his way back to Rome, and we look forward to seeing what steps are next. What do we do from here? And there's lots of work to be done, but I think really I'm sensing many are ready to engage.
That's Father Alan Fogarty, the CEO of Salt and Light Television. Now, also joining us on the phone, possibly, I don't know, where she's on the plane right now, headed back to Rome, about to leave, Jen Kopstake, our Vatican Bureau Chief. Jen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. We're on the plane. We're just about to leave Calgary.
Oh, perfect. I believe we're watching images now of the Holy Father arriving. So, Jen, as this trip wraps up, can you share with us a little bit about what it was like on the ground in Iqaluit? You checked in with us before the event started, and just as that event progressed, what kind of things did you hear and see?
So we heard a lot. We heard that it's actually a very, very good turnout in Iqaluit. That people on the ground were saying that a lot of people had come out to see the Holy Father, to speak today. And as I said, it was a very somber atmosphere. And a lot of people are now looking forward to what will happen after the Holy Father returns to Rome. We caught up with Archbishop Don Boland, who was in the crowd. So Archbishop Boland from Medina has actually traveled with some survivors on a bus. He traveled to Edmonton, he was in Musqueam, he was in St. Anne, Lac St. Anne, and he came on the charter plane with these some survivors here to Iqaluit today. And he talked about the importance of being an ally, so the Church as an ally in the pursuit of justice. He reiterated that the Canadian bishops had made a $30 million commitment to reconciliation, and how he saw that was strengthening the self-worth of the Indigenous communities that the Church is working with, and especially when it comes to language. He also was speaking, as Pope Francis has spoken, about the relationship with the environment, and all we have to learn from Indigenous culture is the sense of being in a relationship with the Creator, making decisions on the environment, and thinking of the next 7 generations ahead. And those thoughts from Archbishop Boland were very much echoed in some of the Inuit people we spoke to there. And we've had the opportunity, Father Fogarty was speaking in that interview about the documentaries that are being produced by Salt and Light. And we spent time in Rankin Inlet, another part of Nunavut, just recently, and that will be in the documentary. But seeing the relationship that the Inuit have with the land here is truly remarkable, and there's so much that we can learn from this culture. And that was something that came during the speech and in the crowd, people talking about that as well.
Yes, absolutely, and that theme certainly carried throughout several meetings during the course of this journey. We're just watching images of the Holy Father entering the hangar, where he will be, I believe, having a meeting with the Governor General just prior to taking off.
To meet him, we were expecting the Governor General to meet him here in the hangar and also to have an honor guard, but I don't know what your pictures are showing.
That's right, Jen. Jen is on the plane right now, so you're not in person in the hangar. There's a full entourage as the Holy Father enters. It is interesting to note that the Governor General is Inuit, so certainly an interesting connection there. And she is. We're just seeing images now of the Governor General about to be seated along with the Holy Father. From what I understand, there aren't any addresses. However, there will be likely a photo opportunity and a song and drum performance as well. A bit of a farewell, I guess you could say. Jen, I was just wondering now, as we wrap up this tour, what are the next stages do you see? You mentioned the Reconciliation Fund. That's well underway, and certainly the Holy Father emphasized the importance of walking together, and that this was only the start. Actually, let's just be silent for a moment as there is a drum performance and song. That was a song and drum performance for the Holy Father. That song actually is a traditional song from North Bath, and it honors a special time of year for the Inuit. When 2 stars appear in the sky while it's still light out. It was explained that the lyrics say, "I am young, I am proud, I come from a beautiful land, I come from a very strong people." Still on the line with us, I believe, is Jen Kopstake. Jen, our Vatican Bureau Chief, on the phone waiting to depart Iqaluit. We are watching images now of the papal entourage greeting the Governor-General Mary Simon and giving their regards to the Holy Father. So Jen, we were just discussing before we took a break to listen to that drum song, just what the next steps are, and you touched on a little bit on that with Archbishop Bone about the Reconciliation Fund and really this idea of walking together. And the Holy Father said numerous times that really this is just the start of things.
Yeah, and I thought it was very beautiful in his speech tonight in Iqaluit when he also talked about walking upwards, and that was something that we've heard when we've been in Rankin Inlet as well. You know, there's some young people, but when he was speaking tonight, it was very, very moving because it felt like he was speaking directly to some young people who we've spoken to in Rankin Inlet. One young gentleman who was telling us, you know, that he felt quite isolated and spending days. Pope Francis talked about being held hostage to the cell phone, and that was something that somebody actually spoke to us about. And this idea of thinking of the North and the vastness and thinking that your dreams, not to think that your dreams are unattainable, and the youth being an answer to the world. That was a beautiful message to leave on. And I thought it was wonderful that he also described himself as an elder brother giving advice to the youth of the North here. So that, I think, message of how to engage with the youth moving forward, to address the issues of intergenerational trauma. We spoke to 3 teenage girls here, I think I mentioned previously, but they were in close to tears, and they felt very strongly the pain of their family members who had gone to residential schools. So working as well with the youth, I think it's not a coincidence that the Holy Father ended the trip with such an emphasis on developing the youth, particularly here in the north. And lots of people have spoken to us that they simply want to find spaces where they can connect to each other, and the church could provide a lot of help with that. You know, there's some beautiful church buildings in the Calaris, in Rankin Inlet, which have a lot of space where people could come together to meet, and people really want to meet and process the meaning of the trip and what this has been. This has been, you know, almost relentless is not the right word, and exhausting is not the right word, but it's been a very intense, you know, 5 or 6 days for everybody, and people really respect Pope Francis's resilience and his strength and courage, you know, at his age, and also people who understand that he's suffering, you know, with physical constraints, and people really respect that, and they want to thank the Holy Father for that. So it's just, I think, moving forward after this trip, there's a lot to process. It's been a lot for a lot of people the last 5 to 6 weeks.
Yes, absolutely, Jen. And while you're talking, we're seeing a number of familiar faces for those who have been walking along together on this journey, as we have several dignitaries meeting the Governor General and Pope Francis. Those who would have seen the documentary Walking Together, or again, following our coverage, would have noticed the Inuit Tiparit Kanatami President Nathan Obed, the Métis Nation National Council President Cassidy Caron, Assembly First Nation Regional Chief Gerald Antoine, as well the Honorable Mark Millers is in attendance, Commissioner of Nunavut, the Nunavut Premier. There's many dignitaries as well as elders, and you touched on elders there just in reference to the Holy Father's address, specifically addressing young people and elders, and that idea of looking upwards and soaring upwards. I believe he said. I thought, what a great image, and really, what words of hope and joy. And the fact that he specifically, as his last speech, chose to address young people, I think that's certainly telling, and I think that really does help end this pilgrimage of penance on a hopeful and a positive note. Of course, his pieces of advice, he had 3. One was, that first one was keep walking upwards, and he also talked about come to the light. And then lastly, he talked about being part of a team. That's where he actually made the reference to hockey and our women's Olympic gold medal winners, which I thought was a nice touch. But interestingly, that second piece of advice, come to the light, and he referenced the kulak, that traditional lamp used by Inuit people to not only light their igloos, but also to provide warmth. And again, this was really a beautiful piece to see this incorporation of different aspects of Indigenous culture. And then with the Inuit, we heard this reference to the kulak. Even the stole that he wore was seal skin. So I thought that was a nice piece to see that and the different performances. And it seemed to be well received by the people that the Holy Father was enjoying this and watching an expression of their culture.
Yes, there were expressions of applause and appreciation at various times during the Holy Father's speech. I would say it was warmly received for the most part, and we saw pretty much a huge amount of people, like I said, that had gathered in the center of the Calumet for the speech. We believe the kulak was lit inside the school, and yes, coming into the light each day and making sure that the youth are also the ones who are the answer to the world. It was a very powerful expression that Pope Francis used in his speech this evening, saying, don't let yourself get dragged down by the scandal of the world and war, but you the answer to the world. And I think that's a message that will hit home to a lot of youth here. And hockey is such an important part, actually, we've learned, of culture here in the North. It's a very proud hockey culture, and a lot of Inuit youth participate in hockey and sports, and it's was lovely to see that incorporated into the speech. I mean, this is on Canadian culture as well. That a lot of people on the plane have been experiencing Canadian culture. And there was a Tim Hortons just across from where Pope Francis was giving the speech, and you know, that wasn't referencing the speech, but it was a nice thing for people gathered there to explore Tim Hortons, let's say, while people were waiting for him to arrive. And we're all getting ready now on the plane for anticipating a press conference from the Holy Father. It's expected, but we'll see what happens in the first half an hour after we take off. The people are setting up all around me. You may hear a bit of a buzz on the plane, the cameras and the sound for the Holy Father's anticipated press conference.
Absolutely.
It'll be very interesting to hear what is said.
Yes, yeah, certainly for his own reflections on the trip. And as we see him making his way out of the hangar towards the tarmac and towards the plane, we should probably let you go, Jen, so that you can get prepared for your flight as well. So thank you once again for joining us, not only today, but okay. Well, thank you for joining us today and throughout the course of this week. We appreciate your on-the-ground insights into the Holy Father's visit to Canada.
Thank you.
That's Jen Kopstake, our Vatican Bureau Chief, joining us from Iqaluit on the plane. We're just about ready to depart here. We had the, I guess you'd call it the obligatory moment with the political moment with the Governor General, where the Holy Father and the Governor General met. Certainly a bit of a courtesy call, you'd call it, and then several dignitaries were in attendance as well. So we are awaiting the Holy Father's entry into the plane, and then it will be taking off and headed back to Rome. I believe that's probably about a 10-hour flight or so. But while we watch some of these images, our Salt and Light associate producer Julian Paparella has put together a bit of a recap, looking at what has happened over the last few days from the Edmonton leg of the journey to Quebec City, and then wrapping up here in Iqaluit. So as these images draw to a close, let's have a listen to what Julian has to say.
As this week of Pope Francis's visit to Canada wraps up, let's take a look at some of the highlights and key moments that we've experienced together. Pope Francis came to Canada on Sunday, arriving on this pilgrimage of penance to encounter the Indigenous peoples in Canada on their own lands. That really started on Monday morning at Masquachis, where the Pope went to visit the site of one of the largest residential schools in Canadian history. There he saw this enormous banner with all the names of the children that are missing. He embraced it. He kissed it. He then went to the local cemetery. He prayed there and then walked from there with chiefs to Masqua Park, where he offered a sincere, heartfelt, and long-awaited apology that was met with tears, with joy, with applause. At the end of that moment, Willie Littlechild honored the Pope by giving him a headdress, like the Indigenous chiefs. This was a testament to Pope Francis's work and commitment to walking with Indigenous peoples on the path of reconciliation and healing. Later that day, he went to Sacred Heart Parish of the First Peoples, the only entirely Indigenous parish that's totally devoted to them and recently rededicated. We were there. It looks beautiful. And I can tell you that their liturgies are filled with beautiful songs, beautiful signs of Indigenous spirituality that come together so wonderfully with our Catholic faith. Then on Tuesday at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton, Pope Francis celebrated Mass for tens of thousands of people who gathered to hear his message and also to show their support and solidarity with the Indigenous peoples of Canada. Tuesday afternoon, the Pope was a pilgrim at Lac Sainte Anne, a sacred site that's so important to the Indigenous peoples of that region, known for its healing, where they come and gather each summer, especially on the feast of Saint Anne, the grandmother of Jesus. Pope Francis went there in a very powerful gesture right up to the water's edge. The Pope then flew across Canada to Quebec City, where he met with Governor General Mary Simon and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. There at the Citadel, he offered words and thoughts about some things that are characteristic of Canada. He spoke about the maple leaf flag and the fleur-de-lis in Quebec as signs of the ecological beauty of Canada, our nature that spans from coast to coast, and our responsibility in being stewards of it, pointing to the Indigenous as people that we can learn from in our care for creation as a gift from the Creator. Thursday morning, the Pope went to the National Shrine of St. Anne de Beaupré, where he celebrated a special Mass of Reconciliation. The Pope pointed to Jesus as the one who accompanies us on the path of healing and reconciliation, as he accompanied the disciples on the road to Emmaus. Later, the Pope went to Our Lady of Quebec Cathedral, Notre-Dame de Québec, where he celebrated Vespers, evening prayer, with bishops, priests, religious, and lay ministers from across Canadian dioceses. He spoke of the challenges facing the Church, especially in an increasingly secularized society. The Pope called upon us as Catholics in Canada to take up 3 challenges. First, to make Jesus known, especially in the many spiritual deserts of our modern society. Second, to witness to how God is personally alive and present in our lives. And third, fraternity, letting the love of God unite us in bonds of communion and unity with one another that spread across society. To wrap up his visit, the Pope went to Iqaluit in Nunavut, honoring the peoples of the northernmost regions of our country. Now, as Pope Francis's time in Canada reaches its end, it's time for all of us, as Canadians and as Catholics, to take up the torch, to continue the work of healing, reconciliation, and truth. We need to know more about our Indigenous brothers and sisters. We need to walk with them, to work with them, and we also need to continue calling upon our Church and our government to do their part in finding concrete ways of supporting Indigenous communities. This week has not been the beginning nor the end. Let's continue walking forward hand in hand.
And that's Julian Paparella with a great recap as we await the Holy Father's departure from Canada, as his apostolic voyage to Canada draws to a close. And before we wrap up our own program, I just want to extend a few thank yous to not only you, our viewer, for watching and for supporting Salt and Light, but also to the crew that has brought you this programming over the course of the last 6 days. Of course, Father Fogarty, Gita, Alex, Javier, Esmeralda, Peter, Louisa, Alex, Olivia, Raul, Jim, the full team on the ground. That includes Jen, who we just heard from, Julian, Rodney, Rich, Dave, Jay, Stephanie, Peter, Guy Anthony, Sohi in the marketing team, Deacon Pager with the Papal Visit team. Of course, Francis, thank you so much for joining us and providing the French commentary. These names, you might not know these people, but they're the folks who really make a production like this happen, and none of it could be possible without each one playing a role, so my deepest thanks to them. As we draw to a close, please visit slmedia.org for more information about replays, for the blog with text from the Holy Father, and just for interesting facts and information about this historic pilgrimage of penance. So thank you everyone for joining us over the course of the last 6 days. On behalf of all of us here at Salt and Light Television, I'm Matthew Harrison. God bless.